Hi everybody, how are we? Hopefully you've all had a great week. I'm going to be going through a few things. Sorry the video is a little bit late. I wasn't that well last weekend and my voice disappeared for a bit, but it's all good now. So, where shall we start? We will start this week. We're going to be covering a little bit on the portfolio because I know a lot of you finished placement and are working on it at the moment. So, I'm going to go over some of the main questions that we've been having. I'm also going to pop into the first day musings so that we can support the people who are just still out on placement. We have a lot of people who are in their second and third week at the moment. So hopefully you're all doing very well, and those people in their final week, hang in there. And when we look at the first day musings, I'll just look at those quickly. Um, we've got a lot of people who are having trouble with mentor teachers. We've got some people who've got super lucky, fantastic mentor teachers. It's fantastic. They're very lucky. But we are having some people who are having a bit of a struggle at the time. So if you finished your placement, make sure you're popping in and just talking to the people who are maybe having a few more problems and issues and give them that support, because you know how hard it can be when everyone's really, really tired and run down and maybe the mentor teachers are sick and it's the end of term 3, so teachers are all getting a little fractious. So yeah, if you can get in there and just support those poor people who are out there and having some struggles at the moment. We've got some very supportive things happening on here. Megan's at a school where it's incredibly busy, and that happens as well. And you might want to come in there and say something. I wrote there, Megan was talking about how it's a really busy school and she doesn't know if it's beneficial for students because they don't have any time to get really stuck into anything. And this is a very topical thing in a lot of schools. A lot of schools totally overcrowd a calendar, and then teachers feel overwhelmed because they're trying to do what they need to do, as well as all the things the school is trying to put in place. So I've just put in there that I'd love to hear from other people, because I would. I'd love to hear what your school was like in regards to that. Giuseppe's got in there. Thank you, Giuseppe. You finished your placement and it's great. And yeah, that's talking about mentor teachers and learning styles. Thanks, Giuseppe. That's a great post. And putting things in like that is really good because we start thinking about that type of thing. One day you're going to be, well, soon, you're all going to be fully qualified teachers, and then you'll be able to have mentor teachers, or you will be able to be mentor teachers. And if you're starting to think about the kind of mentor teacher you want to be, that's how you build great teachers, is by being a wonderful mentor teacher. When I was in the classroom, I had many, many student teachers just because I loved seeing how they could develop. And most people who go into teaching are very passionate about it. That's why they're in there, especially by the time they get to their internship or their final placement. So being able to actually mentor those people and work with those people is really good honour. And I just used to love having student teachers in my classroom. So Alexia has finished her placement and she's written all about the things that were going on. She's written about the politics in staff rooms, which is something you might want to discuss, because often that is left without being said and no one says anything about the politics, and every school is a political arena. So discussing it puts it out into the open and makes people feel like they're normal. So a lot of student teachers will go into schools, and there's often a culture where student teachers sit on one side of the room and the other teachers, the real teachers, are all talking, and they're sort of excluding them because they're student teachers and they're not really part of anything. I don't know if that happened to you, or if you were in a school where there was a fantastic culture and that sort of thing happened. Alexia's also written there about activities that she did during the placement and at the end of the placement, and this is fantastic. So you might want to go in there and just have a read and get more strategies out as well. And she's popped up some healing music and deep sleep induction music. Fantastic, thank you. So those sort of things are fantastic. If you can offer all these resources, pop into that forum and support those people who are still out there. I'm sure they will really, really, really appreciate that. So next thing, this week we're in week 8, and our topic this week is looking at moderation, and assessment. So we discussed last week when we discussed Standard 5 all about moderation and assessment. Um, this week, and it's Unit Learning Outcome 5 and it's Standard 5. So this week you're going to be thinking, well, first of all, you've got to look at the scenario of the assessment moderation challenge, but also think about, did you do any moderation of assignments or assessments when you're on placement? If you were in a classroom where you were team teaching, you probably did. You may have even gone into some NAPLAN meetings where they were talking about moderating right throughout the years so that they could see that there was a development happening throughout the years. I don't know if you've had a chance to do that. You might have been able to do that on another placement. But there are all these different types of moderation. So you've got just in class moderation, where you'll be sitting with your mentor teacher comparing your own marking. Then you'll have for the whole year group, if you've got different streams of the classes. Then you'll have across the whole school. Then you'll have district-wide. So if you're in a year 3 room, they often have district-wide meetings to make sure everybody's marking at the same level. So you could, if you've been involved in any of that, you could be talking about that in this week's thread. Now, what I wanted to do, we're looking at Standard 2 this week. Now, with your portfolio, we're having many questions around presentation of your portfolio. So it has to be done in a PDF, but you can have all the links linking out to a Google Doc if you want to. Or as Kat mentioned, she's done hers as a PowerPoint. She's got some special animations on there. So she wants to be able to submit it as a PDF. And you can also email me the PowerPoint so I can see all the special animations and cool stuff that you've done. When you're applying for jobs and things, of course, you'll be able to email the PowerPoint through, but because we have to put it through Turnitin because it's one of the university's rules, even though we don't mind about your Turnitin score in this, because we're assuming you're using about 3/4, probably maybe 2/3 of other placements, so we're expecting a high Turnitin score, so don't worry about that. But yeah, it has to go through because that's the university's restrictions on assignments, their policies. So Standard 2, 2.4 is one of the ATSE standards, which we have discussed already, and that is why I've left Standard 2 to the end. Standard 2 is know the content and how to teach it. I should imagine after this placement you will be updating most of the focus areas in Standard 2 because in your first placement you wouldn't have known much of the content and how to teach it. By the second placement, you're getting a better understanding of the content and how to teach it. But by the third placement, you should really know the content. So you should know the curriculum, whichever curriculum you happen to be using. You should know it pretty well by now. And you should also know so many teaching strategies because you've done all the units, you've done all the subject areas, you should know how they are all working at this point. So you would be updating Standard 2. So we're going to pop over and have a quick look at Standard 2. Standard 2.1 is content and teaching strategies of the teaching area. So this I should be able to be seeing in the sequence of lessons. Your teaching strategies of the teaching area should be varied across the sequence of lessons. They shouldn't all be the same all the way through because you're appealing to all the children in your class. We should also there be able to see that you're adapting it for individual students. So we should have it being changed a little. So you've got extension, you've got remediation. If you've got student with just different disabilities or abilities, then you will be adapting the lessons to be able to do that, and that should be going across all the areas. And that demonstrates that you know, one, the strategies of how to teach different students, but also you know how to adjust the content, which means you've got a very good grip on the content. And this is the same with content selection and organisation. So these are both ones which I'm going to be looking for in your series of lessons and your unit plan. Curriculum assessment and reporting links up beautifully to 5. So once again, this will link into your moderation and making consistent and comparable judgments, which you can see over there. I think these two are very strongly close together. This one is from our placement at the moment. So you may want to use some of the things that you've collected for here if you've collected a few too many bits and pieces, but you can update your 2.3 with. 2.4 is the one we're doing for this semester. So make sure you've got something in there. We've discussed that in the week 4 video. 2.5, literacy and numeracy strategies. those should have developed significantly since you reported them last. I think that was in the last placement. So you may want to update those. And of course the ICT one, which that will depend a lot on your placement and what equipment and your mentor teacher that you have at the placement. So that's pretty much standard 2. Go back. Sorry. All right, now we'll just go through down here. So very quickly, you should have your evidence for all of those ones there in the first section. Should be a very strong piece and a reflective statement for each of those. And in at least one, so it's just at least one, you explain how you've made a positive impact on student learning. You could do that in all of them. Most of the standards, if you've really thought about it and your placement has gone well, should have made a positive impact on the students. What have you learned and how has it changed your professional, intellectual, personal, ethical? I would be expecting that one especially to be around 6.2. And the 6s, those ones we did first, these ones 6.2 and 6.4. This one too, 7.4. We've had a few people discussing that was very difficult, linking up with teacher networks and broader communities, and there have been some great suggestions. So thinking about if you've gone on excursions, how you've worked with excursions, if you've had swimming lessons, if you've had camps, all of those things are linking up with networks and broader communities. If you've had incursions and brought people into the classroom, once again, linking up with other communities. So there are many things that could be going on there. One of the other ones, 3.7, we've engaged parents and carers in the educative process. If you've got an older year group and some schools' parents just aren't very receptive, put in, if you've put out messages or you've had one child in particular you've been working with and communicating with the parents, put all of that in. If you're putting things up on Seesaw or sending things out through the newsletter, put those sort of things in. They all go in there perfectly. If you sent out any notes to the parents, welcoming them in and introducing yourself, put those in there as well. Okay. So each statement should be approximately 1 to 2 paragraphs in length. We don't want really, really long ones, but if paragraphs vary in length. I've read essays which have been 1 paragraph, like they're 1,000 words, but they haven't broken into paragraphs, so it's been 1 paragraph. Paragraphs vary in length greatly. So you've got to think about not too much. You don't want more than a page. So you want your evidence and your reflection all on 1 page. If you've got 3 small paragraphs, that's fine because they're 3 small paragraphs, but it all has to fit on 1 page. And you've got to think it's also for if you were applying for a job. You don't want somebody to have to read screeds and screeds if you're applying for a job, because they'll just look at it and go, oh, that's too much. You want it to be clear, crisp, precise, and say exactly what you want. So if you don't just do 2 paragraphs, it's 3 paragraphs, don't panic, but just make sure it all fits on the page. Then you've got your second stage ones. And as I said, especially with standard 2, I would be expecting you probably updating these, because I'm expecting you will know the curriculum and teaching strategies a lot better now than you would have before. All right. You have to submit it as a PDF, or a Word will work if you're doing it in Word. Don't embed videos in your folder. So if you want to use videos, you need to put in the link to the YouTube or Vimeo or whatever you're using and go through that way. Or if you put it into a Google Doc, have your link through to the Google Doc. All of these need to have scholarly literature wherever possible. And I would imagine after doing all the units in this course, you would have a lot of scholarly literature for pretty much every FA. What we're trying to see is that you're able to apply that theory into the classroom, into a practical situation. So it's not just so that you're sprouting a whole lot of theory just so that we can see that you know theory. What I'm really looking for when I'm marking the portfolio is that you're able to transfer that theory into what it really looks like in practice. So that's really important. So that is about it. The due date is coming up soon. If you're going to have a struggle with that, you can always email me for a 48-hour, so it's the 23rd of September. You can always email me for a 48-hour extension or put in an extension form to Amanda. Um, we can't go too far because we have to get these marked and be able to put up for assessment so we can get it to the teacher registration board. So that's why we're a little bit earlier than the other units. But anyway, have a good think about it, have a look at it, make sure you're in there supporting those people who've just gone out on placement. Those of you who finished, congratulations. It's been so awesome. I've seen so many of you have also got jobs already as well. Yay. I'm so happy. If you want to send me those emails and tell me how you're going, and if you have applied for jobs or anything like that, let me know. It's always so happy when I hear that people have managed to get jobs, particularly in schools that they've just done their placement in, because it shows the quality of our graduates. There's always this sort of stigma around online education because a lot of teachers who went through old school university can't understand that you could possibly learn to be a teacher online. So when I get these reports of how brilliant you've been out on placement and how you've represented this university so well, it's so good. And then, yeah, so if you've got any success stories, please push them through. I love reading them. Makes me feel like everything is worthwhile. Anyway, have a great week and I hope to speak to you soon. I hope everything's going well for you. Those who are struggling a little bit on placement, please don't panic. Just keep going in there. Think about all that resilience stuff we did at the beginning with the Bright program. You'll get through it. It's 4 weeks and then you'll be able to run the classroom how you want to run it, not have to do it how somebody you disagree with does it. Anyway, have a great week and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.